Hello everyone, I am Deepjoy Katwal and I teach in the Department of English at Salesian College, Sonada. I welcome you all to Radio Salation's introductory radio lecture on Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels. The lecture is intended for North Bengal University's 4th semester English Honours students, and as per the syllabus, I will be focusing on Book 3 and Book 4 of Gulliver's Travels. So by the end of this session, I hope to leave you with the basic understanding of the following points. The growth of novel as a literary form or genre in the 18th century Europe, social and historical background of the novel, a brief biographical sketch of Jonathan Swift, basic outline of Gulliver's Travels, the relevance of reading Gulliver's Travels today, and why satire as a form of literature is an effective weapon of criticism and resistance against any kind of opposing ideology or oppressive regime or oppressive society. So novel as a literary form developed in the 18th century Europe, various social and economic reasons led to the growth of novel. For instance, the growth of middle class and the spread of education and overall economic growth. So as more and more people became literate, they wanted to read because now they could read. And in the absence of other forms of entertainment compared to what we have today, novels slowly became very popular. So novels in its various forms, in its early form, became a source of entertainment for people, and it became a viable means of income for writers. So the demand for books encouraged more writers to write, and novels fulfilled that demand. But we have to remember that this is the beginning phase of novel writing. So it went through various phases of transformation. So during this period, there was a tremendous interest in travelogue, for example, or for the real adventure of people going out into the world and finding out new places and new people. And mind you, this is also the period when colonialism was slowly gaining momentum. So people were, traveling into Africa, South America, Asia, and colonizing new land. So there was opportunity for people to explore, and not the entire world had been explored by the Westerners. And we know that Jonathan Swift also really liked to read such travelogues. He was a fan of such travelogues, and numerous travel writings or travelogues were written. And Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe and Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift are few which have remained popular to this day. So that's the early form of novel which developed during that period. Other popular writers who wrote in the 18th century England, we can mention, for example, Samuel Richardson, who wrote Pamela and Clarissa, Henry Fielding, who wrote Joseph Andrews, Lawrence Sterne, who wrote Tristan Sandy. And there were not only men who were writing, of course there were women who also wrote during the period. For example, Afra Ben, Fanny Burney, and Mary Wollstonecraft also belongs to the same period. It is indeed unusual for a piece of work that was intended to be one of the bleakest satires on mankind became favorite among children. So it is ironical that we all come across Gulliver's Travels as a children's book, and that is what we think of this book as. However, Swift wrote the book to attack whatever he thought was wrong with English society and with mankind in general. Swift took the form of travel writing, which was popular during his time, and expanded his target to all sorts of people, ideas, and institutions. In its basic form, Gulliver's Travel is an adventure story involving several voyages of a person named Lemuel Gulliver, who is a ship's surgeon and who, because of a series of mishaps when he's traveling to all these places, ends up instead on several unknown islands. And he finds those islands inhabited with people and animals of unusual sizes, behaviors, and ideologies. But after every adventure, he is able to return home to England somehow, and then he recovers from these unusual experiences, both mentally and physically, and then sets out again on a new voyage. So altogether, there are 4 books in the novel, and in the first book, Gulliver is traveling and his ship is destroyed by a storm and he ends up on the island of Lilliput. And this is also the image that remains with us is associated with Gulliver's Travels for most of us. The image of Gulliver being tied down to the ground with scores of tiny people trying to find out who he is and what he is doing and sort of running around his body. He remains in the island for some time. He is sort of treated well and he helps them with their various activities, including a war with another island. But when he refuses to make the inhabitants of the other island slaves to the emperor of that particular island, he falls from favor. In the second book, as Gulliver travels, he and his crew member are sent to find water on an island, and instead they meet people who are giants. And as the crew flees, Gulliver is left behind and captured. And Gulliver's captor is a farmer who takes him home, and Gulliver is treated kindly, but of course he is curiously looked at by everyone. And the farmer's daughter treats him like a pet. So the opposite thing happens here. Instead of other people being Lilliputs and Gulliver being the giant, here Gulliver becomes the Lilliput and other people are the giants. And he also meets the king of the land, and they discuss things about England. Gulliver tells him about different activities that his country does, and many things about England, politics and war and everything. So the king is horrified and he is shocked by the selfishness and pettiness that Gulliver describes about England and English men. So, and Gulliver in his own way tries to defend England. So this is the point about satire. Satire works only when only when the person believes in something wholeheartedly, when the futility of such belief or such action is obvious to the other person or other society or other group. So for the king here, for the giant king, it is obvious that the human society or the people in England are selfish and petty, but it is not obvious to Gulliver, right? Because so Swift is trying to make use of Gulliver's naivety and innocence to show how petty and how selfish human world is in general during his time in the 18th century. And we can say that not much has changed till this date. So one day on the beach, as Gulliver is looking at the sea, he's snatched up by this huge eagle and eventually dropped into the sea. And miraculously a ship appears and spots a floating Gulliver, and eventually he returns to England to his family.